Posted by who/itomata2. What was the please stop school presentation that you witnessed? So there was this student in my grade 7 class, let's call him Dan, who was the kind of idiot whose every futile action is story worthy. In this particular case, Dan was giving a book report. So, last month Dan was able to get an extension on his book report, which it was clear he hadn't done, because Dan had a hard time with school and the teacher took pity on him. This month rolls around, and the teacher calls on Dan to give his presentation. So Dan opens his binder and suddenly his face goes this shade of fake surprise, and he declares it's not here. So the teacher makes him check inside his desk, and then makes him go look in his locker. He's out there for about 4 minutes, locker is directly beside the classroom, and he comes in saying that he must have left it at home, and asks for an extension. Teacher knows he hasn't done it, and is fed up with this poop, so she tells him that after 2 months of working on it, he should be able to present it from memory. So, Dan reluctantly goes to the front of the class and stands before us. After a few seconds, he gets on one knee and slowly retters his shoelace. He stands back up, stares at the floor for a few seconds, then gets down on one knee again. Teacher tells him to stand up and present. Dan opens his mouth. So, my book report is on a good book called Too Cool Goes Snowboarding. Book sounds familiar, because it's sitting by the door of our school library, in the kindergarten section. The book is about Too Cool and his school trip to a ski resort. The rest of the kids go skiing, but Too Cool is too cool for skiing, so he goes snowboarding instead. Dan looks proudly at our teacher, who stares him down, and says go on. A suddenly flustered Dan begins to make stuff up. Well, the thing is, some mean bullies at the ski resort make fun of Too Cool, and they challenge him to a snowboarding competition. Too Cool knows he can't win, but then this Chinese guy called Wang agrees to teach Too Cool how to snowboard using the ancient methods of his people. With Wang's guidance, Too Cool wins the competition and everything is great. The teacher just looks at Dan and everyone knows he basically ripped off the plot of Karate Kid. She tells him to sit down, and he makes his way to the back of the room to his desk and sits down. He just dropped his head down hard onto his desk and that was how he stayed for the rest of the class. 6th grade. We were supposed to select a famous person of the 20th century and then write a 10-page paper plus create a visual presentation to share with the whole school. Weird kid picks Hitler. I have a definite feeling that he didn't really know who Hitler was because he showed up dressed like Hitler, mustache and all, and chose not to discuss the Holocaust/WW2, but instead Hitler's rough childhood and foray into becoming a painter. This was right after Columbine. It wasn't cool. He got expelled. Source was me. I really didn't understand what I was doing. Someone in my class did a book report on the dictionary. The teacher was pissed. All of us students thought it was hilarious. Never heard the end of the presentation. Damn, I wish I had thought of that. I hated book reports. In college, someone was doing a presentation on Nelson Mandela and kept referring to Africans as African Americans. My mom had a black friend from the UK who was also Muslim. She came out to the US for business and people were shook by this black lady in a hijab with a British accent. Someone called her an African American, and she said I really hope I don't sound American. This was in freaking college. RBO finals were to present on any topic that was related to biology. A group was presenting on types of protection for sex. Not once did they refer to any body parts or fluids by their scientific names. So, yes, they literally had male genitalia, cum, and female genitalia on slides and read off them. Everyone kept glancing over at our professor, who had this look like he was just constantly cleaning his glasses because he couldn't believe what he was witnessing. They got Kentucky Fornicate on grading. I googled Kentucky Fornicate but it just delivered porn results. Not a presentation, but during our school assemblies we often had student performers, which were usually musically inclined individuals or theater kids doing a scene/monologue. One kid decided to do a stand-up comedy routine about a girl giving him a so awkward and the principal had to interrupt him. For some reason the pure cringe from this hit me like a truck. I can only imagine what being in the audience would be like. It was my sophomore year English class. This kid who was reading his essay in front of the class and started to stumble over some of the words. The teacher recognized the words and found the essay the kid plagiarized and started helping him read it. The kid didn't understand what was happening and just thanked the teacher and kept reading. Edit. Holy crap. Gold? Thank you. I don't have time to reply to everyone, but here's a few more details for clarity. This was in like 2004. The teacher found the essay on the internet. He gave the kid a day to try again. The kid was stumbling over the words because they were big ones he'd evidently never seen before. Everything else is fuzzy since it was over 15 years ago. Cheers. Thanks for the upvotes. Imagine the kid realized and said fornicated and kept reading. That's how I'm imagining it. I went to school for computer security. In an introduction to computer security course, we had to do a project on social engineering. A student decided that for his project he was going to find a way to gain access to a chosen website. He found a small local business website, identified that the domain was registered to an email address from a local ISP, called the ISP to reset the password. They asked him for his last 4 of his SSN, so he hung up. He found the phone number of the business, so called them and pretended to be from the ISP, offering 3 months free if the person did a 5-question survey. They accepted and answered some BS questions. Then he asked for the last 4 of the guy's SSN, which they gave no problem. He then called the ISP with the last 4, got them to reset the password of the email account. He then logged into the email and used it to get the domain registrar to send a password reset to the email, which he used to reset the password of the domain account and deleted the email. He recorded all phone calls and screenshotted the whole process. As he presented all these, we kept expecting him to say, but that would be illegal, so I didn't do X, but he went all the way. The professor finally stopped him after he said he logged into the domain registrar and told him to destroy everything and never speak of it again. I think the professor was a bit nicer than he could have been, potentially to the point of accomplice, telling him to destroy evidence. In history class, we all had to do a presentation about some sort of injustice in the world. One kid chose a prison camp for his topic. All his PowerPoint slides were photos of men being stripped, chained, whipped, sodomized, and forced to give. We were 13. Edit. Yes, his project was about Abu Ghraib. How far did the teacher let him go before he was stopped? In speech 101 in college, we had to pick a children's book and voice act each character. That was it. That was the entire assignment. Well, one student decided to take it to the next level. He chose a Berenstain Bear book and decided to not only do voice acting for every single one of the characters, but also act it out. It was physically uncomfortable to watch this guy scramble around the room and pretend to be bears and other animals. It was not well done. It was awful. That sounds hilarious. The one where my school got ripped off by paying a guy who claimed to be on SpongeBob to come talk to us about drugs. He did look kind of like Tom Kenny, I guess. I was also thinking backward about the question. I thought op meant when did the school have to tell everyone to quit doing something for me? It was banning Pokemon cards in 1998 because toddlers were brawling over that first edition Charizard. Psychology class. Our final was to research and to a presentation on a mental illness. One group chose necrophilia. Started with the first slide saying let's crack open a cold one. They did that joke on Criminal Minds, for Christ's sake. It's pretty tired, just separate and apart from the inappropriateness. For 8th grade talent show, 2 girls sang the Mr. Bledel song. Mr. Bledel was a good looking, recently college graduated teacher that basically was about how cute they thought he was. Even then, it was incredibly uncomfortable, and I remember looking at the teacher's face, and he didn't seem very amused. God, I would hate to be that teacher. I've told this on Reddit a few times, but it's truly unforgettable. Smart kid in the class was giving a deeply sourced PowerPoint presentation on religion in Europe. He opens up his files, proceeds to click on his project named n*GGER. He says clearly I wasn't really paying any attention when I named my file. He gives the presentation. He stutters and sweats bullets while we watch in utter disbelief. The word is sitting there on the top of the file heading the whole time. This was during a study abroad semester while attending a cultural communication class. He had to rot in his own poop after that. I was in 4th grade and a girl in my class did an oral report on Martin Luther King and how he was a hero for freeing the slaves. To be fair, my 5th grade teacher thought the same thing, a woman with her master's degree. People wonder why my state is one of the lowest ranked in the US and I tell them that it's me. I did this. I cringe about it to this day, nearly 20 years later. I was 16 and in high school. My high school was going to do a spring talent show. I wanted to be in the talent show and show off my talents. The problem was, my actual talents are not ones that I could show off at a talent show. So I decided to try singing. I have never sung in my life. I have never had voice lessons. I was in my prime weeb stage and chose an anime song to sing. I didn't know any actual Japanese. I had just memorized the lyrics from hearing the song so many times. Luckily I didn't make it past auditions, but several people saw an overweight girl in a Sailor Moon shirt try to sing Butterfly despite having never done any singing or voice training ever in her life. Nearly 20 years later, and remembering it keeps me awake at night. When I was in high school, a girl from an absurdly wealthy family gave a presentation on why the rich are just as oppressed as anyone. This was in a normal public school in Kentucky where about 90% of the students were middle class at best. You could feel the eyes rolling in that room. You just reminded me of my high school speech class, where one assignment was to give a speech on your pet peeve. A rich girl gave hers on other people's fashion choices, including such gems as when shoes, bags, and belts don't match, wearing out of style clothing, and my personal favorite, wearing the same outfit more than once. In my entire life since, I don't know if I've ever seen anyone more out of touch with an audience. Or reality. In 1984, when I was in 6th grade, each class did a winter concert. The 8th grade football team sang I'm Dreaming of a Black Christmas in blackface. Green Bay, Wisconsin, Bayview Middle School. 1985, Green Bay Middle School. Sounds about right. We were supposed to have Arnold Schwarzenegger come to our school sometime around 1999 or 2000. Principal was hyping it up for weeks. Then about 4 days before his arrival it was announced on Friday that he wasn't coming. Fast forward to Monday, during morning announcements it's announced he's changed his mind and is coming to our school tomorrow as planned. Come Tuesday morning everyone is excited. We're all amped to meet the Terminator. A handful of parents even came with VHS copies of his movies, posters, etc. We're all going to our gym/auditorium, taking our seats. Principal takes the stage, takes the moment to make some announcements. Award honor roll, perfect attendance, etc. Finally she starts hyping up around Schwarzenegger. Everyone is excited and on edge when she basically says here's Arnie, and it's the vice principal in a leather jacket holding a shotgun, not a toy one either, and spends 30 to 40 minutes trying to hype us up for FC80, all the while doing the absolute worst impression of Arnold Schwarzenegger I've ever heard. Once we realized Arnold wasn't there, people start shouting, screaming at the principals for lying to us, along with some of the parents who came to this. I do hope someone has footage of this meltdown of a bunch of K5 kids shouting and screaming at the principals because Arnold Schwarzenegger didn't come to our school. Because I clearly remember 2 to 3 people having camcorders. Edit. Thanks for the gold. Honestly thought this would get buried. And can anyone explain the Office reference? I genuinely hate the show, so I'm not sure why people kept bringing it up. As for some of the questions, Arnold was scheduled, but cancelled last minute on not only my school, but my cousins who he was supposed to go to on Wednesday. Instead he only went to one school in my city, which I don't remember which one ATM, but I'll add it if I remember it. Yes, the principals apologized the next day, and the vice principal changed schools the following school year. I have absolutely no idea why he thought bringing a shotgun was a good idea, but I think he was attempting to look the part, which considering his massive gut, really didn't help. My sophomore year we had to make a presentation about any person that made an impact on the world that was inspirational. Someone chose Hitler. I mean, he did make an impact on the world. Not necessarily a good impact, but still, a very bad impact. In grade 8, my English teacher asked us to do a presentation in the form of propaganda. The examples she used included Hitler's campaign to brainwash Germans into thinking Jews were bad, So naturally, my group thought that propaganda equals bad. And we made a presentation asking people to join a movement to ban obesity and obese people. We didn't actually hate obese people. In fact, I was overweight at the time. We just thought the point of the assignment was to be provocative and brainwash the students with hatred. Our teacher asked us to stop the presentation and said we were being ostracizing. My project partner pointed out that she literally showed us Hitler propaganda as an example, but the teacher said regardless, our project was not appropriate for school. So we redid the project, and this time our propaganda involved asking people to join a book club. Our English teacher was elated. Important edit. So I was revisiting my old school assignments, and apparently, I wrote an essay for the same teacher, but this time it was App English, and guess what? It was about the same topic. But it was in a much nastier tone. The teacher wanted it in the style of A Modest Proposal by Jonathan Swift, which if you don't know, is a satirical essay proposing that we eat children of poor families to alleviate poverty. And so my proposal was about how to solve junk food addicts racking up healthcare costs. My solution was to force addicts to go to rehab, and rehab was supposed to be the local landfill. They would live at the landfill and eat the garbage. The analogy was that junk food equals garbage. I think I actually got very high marks on this essay. I wonder if my teacher remembered the obesity propaganda I did 5 years earlier, but I truly believe this essay was a lot nastier, yet my teacher was okay with it. This was a Spanish class in college, and I think the assignment was something like talk about your best friend or some such. Just kind of a softball assignment, so you could practice using the vocabulary. And one classmate's friend was evidently a friend with benefits. Was there anyone there with no friends? Not at school. But when I was in high school, my church youth group went to this church camp. For those, Thursday nights are normally the really emotional nights. Well, this camp was different. Thursday night, the guy that started the camp comes on stage and begins giving a bunch of middle school and high school boys and girls a sex talk. All I remember from that night was the quote, "Just because there's a hole there doesn't mean you have to stick something in it. But then the boat will sink." An anti-bullying campaign. They spent most of the presentation explaining different types and ways to bully/harass people. Bullying increased in school and everything got 10 times worse now that the students were more educated on the subject. So, basically it was a class of what not to do. Those never end well.
Just wanted to say a big thank you for watching, guys. I really appreciate your support. If you haven't already, please smash that subscribe button. If you want to see more from us, click on the screen right now to watch our next video. See you guys soon!